Hi, welcome to the Boardman Outlook, the monthly Township Board of Trustees kind of State of the Month meeting. And this month we're going to talk a little bit about zoning. If you remember, over the last couple months we've held 2 community forums because we're going to rewrite our zoning codes. And we've got a lot of initiatives that we want to work on in Boardman Township to just keep preparing for the future. And one of those things in zoning is to get public engagement. And Krista, your entire staff, they had 2 meetings, which we weren't sure what it would look like. When we're 6 people, 10 people, and both of them were packed houses. And people were so engaged. And one, I'd like to congratulate you and your staff for putting on a great informational meeting for people. And I've heard throughout the community, how nice that was that you're asking input. So what kind of thoughts do you have on your community meetings?
Yeah, for us, I think it's really important the more we want to start doing a lot of these planning activities and really looking at, what the future of the township looks like, and then what types of things my department should be doing, whether it's in the planning stages or rewriting codes or that kind of thing, is really what does the community want to see. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't do any type of planning or move forward without it being the vision of the community. So that was really the purpose of the meetings, was to get as much input as we could on what are the types of recreational facilities, neighborhood streets, what are the issues that people are worried about that we can direct our attention to over the next couple years. When we go to look at the zoning code, are there things that people love or hate, and then we can put that in there to either encourage or discourage things that people might think are issues. So yeah.
But I was just going to say, I think what's interesting is that for a long time our zoning department was zoning, it was enforcement.
Yeah.
And people would say, well, Boardman grew so fast that we can't grow anymore, we're filled. And I think for the last couple of years, this group of trustees have really started talking about planning and making planning a part of what your job is. And that's why I think, when you came to the township, that was a big part of it, because now we are at a phase, because we're a mature community with our facilities and with our houses, that we can start looking at redevelopment. And I think that's an exciting opportunity for us. And I think the first step of these meetings was to get people to see what the possibilities are.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it will be redevelopment. I think we still have some greenfield sites, but a lot of it is looking at, you see that a lot of the plazas and even with new buildings going up in places where they're redeveloping, but what do people want to see? What type of development? What are the aesthetics? And all of that. So I think I am extremely happy with how much support just coming out from the community that we got. We did, between the 2 public meetings, we got over 150 people, and we also did an online survey for anybody that couldn't attend those meetings, and that just closed, and I think the final count was 618 responses.
That's
so
impressive.
The amount of data and opinions behind that, and at the meetings we gave brief presentations, so we tried to give a little background on what we were doing, but really make it interactive and ask people to give their priorities on different topics on the township. So what we're going to do now is really look at all that data and put together, here's the priorities from the community, and here's the next steps for my department and the township of how we can support those and move those forward.
Did anything jump out at you as far as the data?
Initially, I think there's a couple of big things. I mean, things like the parks systems, Mill Creek Metro Parks and Boardman Park were, overwhelmingly those are people's favorite places. So, and I think that was kind of to be expected. But things like how we get to the parks, how we get more people to use them, access to them. Some of the neighborhood issues, I think were the things that people love the neighborhoods. Things they're worried about. We're making sure the neighborhoods stay stable, and a lot of that, which we kind of do through the more enforcement side of things. But also, what are the positive things or community building things that we can do for that? So. Redeveloping either vacant storefronts or some of those existing older sites was definitely also a big priority.
And I always hear from people, they'd love to see Boardman be more walkable, they'd like to see more bike trails. We've been hearing about that for a long time, and I think that certainly needs to be part of our long-term goals. And I know that, again, that's something that you have to build up to and do a little bit at a time, but I do think those are things people want.
Yeah, that definitely came across. We did, what types of street types do you want to see? And overwhelmingly, I think so far, just looking at the initial data, is very walkable places where you could leave your house, cross the street, and get a pizza or ice cream and that kind of thing, and making sure it's safe for everybody. And from having all of this data, then when we go to do grants or go to look at the code or go to do future planning, we can say, okay, this is what people would like to see. How can we put that into planning and future funding and make sure that we're supporting those decisions that people wanted to see?
Well, and our original zoning was passed in 1947. Things have changed.
Yeah.
And we need to update so that we're able to answer questions that are presented to you today.
Yeah.
I think the growth was so fast in Boardman that it was hard to really, and we weren't around at that time, but it was hard for that to be a thoughtful, strategic process because the growth was so rapid. And now we're just trying to catch our breath. And and to me, it's a fun time. It's like, Boardman 2.0. I mean, I think we're now looking for the next stage of where we're going to be as a community, and I think it can be really exciting.
Yeah, I think it's a great time. I mean, for me, it's I think just absolutely ideal. My background, is planning and looking at how communities develop. And I think to be able to be here at this time when, like you said, it is kind of really a time to look at how we've developed and then where do we want to be moving forward? What kind of community? What's our identity? And to be able to be a part of that and put things into place now that will affect the community for years to come is exciting.
And you've already had some success with some grants.
Yeah, we've applied for a couple smaller grants. Actually both were dealing with kind of the walkability and the transportation issues, looking at sort of that historic North Market Street area, looking at different options for potentially making that more walkable and bikeable and easier to get people to the street and also to those shops and things right there. But also looking at the township as a whole, we just got a grant from Eastgate, which does regional transportation planning, to look at the township as a whole and to make some of those connections. So it's exciting, and that'll also help bring in other partners like the schools and the park districts to give their input and really all work on this as a collaborative effort.
What a lot of people don't understand is like Mill Creek Park is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 65% of it sits in Boardman Township. And of course, what we're most proud about in the park system is our own little park is Boardman Township. And I'm sure each and every one of us at some point has had something. We've hosted there, a birthday party. And it's all about that keeping that community. Even though we're considered one of the large townships in Boardman, or in the state, we want to be our small community still. And when you talk about walkability and bikes, because I think that'll be a bigger emphasis placed on that. And when we look at North Boardman, I mean, you have some great ideas and how that looks in the end of the day here. But, people talk about these road diets. And I know a lot of people are intrigued by it. They don't quite understand these road diets. But what up in the Market Street area, what kind of benefits can we have if we have what was called a road diet up there?
So a road diet really can cover a lot of different things, but it really is looking at, how much of that street do we have, and is that all needed for traffic? Roads were originally designed really to move cars at high speeds as efficiently as possible. Unfortunately, that came at the expense of, if you make a really high traffic, high speed road, it's also going to be extremely dangerous and difficult for a person walking or a bike to cross. So if you live on one side and the park and the ice cream shop is on the other side of the street and you have a 5-lane, 45-mile-an-hour road, it's almost impossible to have that walkable environment. So the road diet really looks at, do we need, looking at the cars and the traffic and safety, do we need that wide of road, or can we, say take one lane out so you still have plenty of space for cars, turn lanes, all of that, but maybe reallocate some of that space to whatever the community needs, whether it's parking or a bike lane or maybe some place for someone to cross halfway, be able to stop in the street and have a safe place and then move on. So it could be any of these ideas, or do people want to see more trees, or do they need benches? So you could kind of look at any of these different amenities, and a lot of times it is safer for the cars as well.
Well, we're going to try to get opportunities for folks so we can show them examples of this. And I've been in a lot of communities where I've seen this. And when you talk to people about it, they think, well, you're taking a lane away, it's going to slow down traffic. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
It improves the traffic flow, and it makes it more, it's just more livable kind of area. So hopefully we can give opportunities to show what those what we can do. And I think it's a great time for people to kind of just reimagine what the township can look like.
Well, we have a blank slate right now. And yes, Boardman is developed. We're looking at what it's going to look like in the future. And I'm so proud of the way that we've asked the community, get involved, help us make those decisions. Tell us what you want. And your staff's doing a wonderful job combining that. And I know we all are looking forward to when that information is going to be ready that we can share.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting to see how many young people came out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about not only people in their, their 30s and 20s, but we've had some high school students come out.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, this is why we're doing it. It's for the future.
Right. You know, we're as township trustees, we're elected officials, we're placeholders, and putting a plan together. So if someone else is sitting in this seat, they can say, well, there's the plan. They don't have to recreate anything or create something. They can tweak it. They can say, well, how about this? And you know, I mean, that's been our goal, is to always have plans for not tomorrow, but really, you know, months to years out. And obviously what we're talking about will take years, because you got Ohio Department of Transportation, and you know,
a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, there's so many moving pieces, but it needs the conversation needs to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you know, we are very thankful for you in your office for what you're doing and how you're trying to kind of help us recreate Boardman to make it. You know, we don't want to become that township that fell apart. And I believe we've worked real hard in the past 8-9 years to stay progressive. So, you know, congratulations, good job. And I'm sure we will have you back on another show, and we're ready to announce some more exciting things in zoning. If you ever have any questions, if you ever have any thoughts out there as a community, you can certainly go to our webpage, and you can email Krista and with your thoughts and ideas, and they will be added to her collection of data. And or you can talk to any of us, and we're accessible. We're always out there for you. And really, with that, our show comes to an end, and we'll be back next month, probably talking a little bit about what's going on in the township, our finances, and all that things, just to give everyone an idea of where we're at.
Can I just throw in, don't forget, March 11th, it's the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Right.
Coming right down Market Street. It's a great event, and I know we'll be there. Hope to see you there.
1 o'clock. For that, thank you for Larry Moliterno, our zoning inspector, our zoning and planning director, Krista Benison, and Trustee Costello, myself, Brad Calhoun. We thank you for everything you do for our community.